Is your AI conscious?
Welcome to The Big Puzzle. In this podcast, we explore the subtle connections between science, religion, politics, economics, and history. One piece at a time, we unveil the big picture of this shared experience that we call life.
When I was a boy, we had this game that it was called the Cerebro Mágico, the magic brain. And let me try to describe it to you. So it was a box, and in that box you had a little bulb, a light bulb, and you have two wires with kind of probes. And then on the bottom of the box, you had a lot of contacts, right? So electric contacts. The way it would work is you had different topics, different knowledge domains that this magic brain knew about, and those were written in paper sheets, right? So each paper sheet had, I think it was kind of 20 questions and 20 answers, right? In an array. And then under each question, you have a little hole, and that hole corresponds with one of the contacts in the box. So let's say that you wanted to learn about geography. So you would look at the sheet with geography questions, you would put it in the box, so all the holes will align with all the contacts. And then you went to the first question. The first question would be, what is the capital of France? Right? And then you go look into the answers, and you look for Paris if you knew. So with the two probes, with the two wires, you would touch both contacts, and if you were right, the bulb would light up. And that's how you knew that you got the right answer. Right? Then you have geometry, math, history. Each of them came in their own sheet. So for somebody who is probably, 7, 8 years old, that is really magic, right? Because, how does this thing know all this? How is it possible that this is so intelligent? It has so much knowledge. But after playing a while, especially if you have siblings that you try to outsmart each other, you start realizing something. You start realizing that regardless of the sheet that you put there, the connections always remain, right? So without any sheet, if I click here, you remember where the question about the capital of France and when Paris is, and you just put it there, and the light will shine. And if you put in geometry, so how many sides the pentagon has, and then you see the 5, and it's exactly the same position. So you don't need to be extremely smart to realize that, what's happening is on the other side, inside of the box, you basically have wires connecting two of those connectors, right? So the question one with the answer one, and those were always the same. At the end, you end up memorizing which connector connected to which other connector, so you suddenly became extremely intelligent and you can answer any questions in any topics. Well, that's kind of dumb, right? Especially if you're an adult. But when you're a child and you basically don't understand circuits, that's what you're doing, right? Closing electric circuits, then it's really surprising, right? It seems to be intelligent. But this is not the first time that something like that has been done. I mean, we're very much aware of switchboards, right? Switchboards are used for communication. So if somebody calls and you connect, you have those ladies that would connect this with this one, and then, the switchboard lady that will connect everything with everything. Because basically that's the idea, how you can change connections. And that's the idea of switching a connection. Now we talk a lot about electric switches, and we kind of lost that reference that is changing how things are connected. But the idea comes from that. And again, there's other cases that are a little more complicated, but they almost changed the course of humanity. And if you haven't heard about it, I would definitely encourage you to go and watch some of the documentaries, World War II and the Enigma machine. The Enigma machine was a encrypting box that the Nazis devised that allowed them to communicate freely through the radio, sending messages back and forth that anybody could hear, but the encoding was so complex that it was not breakable by the whoever was listening. And it was so important. It was probably one of the biggest advantages that the Nazis had, was the development of that machine. And for many months, even years, the Allies couldn't figure it out. And, they just needed access to one of those boxes to see inside. And once they did, it was really easy, because it was not that different than the magic brain that I was talking about. Basically, you had letters, right, that you will click on a typewriter. So you click the letter, and that when you click that letter, it would light up another letter. Right? So you type the message that you received through the radio, that was kind of meaningless letters, but then it would translate it into something, in German that they could understand. So how did that work? Well, again, it was just wires connecting one thing to the other. So when they click one letter, it will close a circuit, and in that circuit you had that other letter with the light that would light up. But what was the clever thing? That the circuits would be changing, right? Inside of the box. And again, I encourage you to go and watch a documentary that will explain it much better than me. But if you just want to understand the basics, you have some cylinders, a series of cylinders, and those cylinders had wires inside that would reconnect in different ways. So every time you click a letter, not only it lights up, but also moves the cylinders in a different way. So every circuit becomes completely different every time. So if you click the same letter over and over, since the circuit is changing, you're switching, it would light up a different letter. So you had to start from a known position, and then you could kind of decipher the message. So it's basically the magic brain, but with gears, right? So the circuits change each time that you press them. And once the Allies rule, the first thing that they had to do, the Nazis, when they were captured, was to destroy the machine. But at some point, if I recall correctly, it was a submarine that they tried to sink, and it didn't sink fast enough. So some people who had captured the submarine from the Allies could go in, retrieve the machine without the Nazis knowing. That was important. They didn't know that they were compromised. And they could open it and they could figure out, okay. So the mechanism, it's a little involved, but it's really, really simple. It's just rewiring, the circuit every time that you click one of the keys. So basically you have the same thing, right? Wires and switches, in this case, mechanical switches. Would you say that the Enigma machine is conscious? So the behavior was kind of complex, was unpredictable, unless you could see the innards. But would you say it was conscious? Would you say it's intelligent? It was not. It was just material, copper and wood and iron, steel. It has nothing conscious. If you could understand and you could follow step by step, you definitely could understand the whole thing. Nothing magic, nothing supernatural happening there. But gears or mechanical and electrical have a big difference, and I already recorded a whole video about that. Electricity is extremely fast, and mechanics or physics, mechanics are slow, right? So you cannot take the full advantage of having something electrical if you in the process have something mechanical, like the gears that would rotate each of these cylinders to rewire each circuit. So at some point, somebody invented a switch that was working on electricity, and we already talked about that. It's a transistor, and the transistor was a game changer, because now instead of rotating things or having the lady, changing this and that and reconnecting, you basically have an electronic way to switch circuits on and off. So you could do the whole thing that the Enigma machine was doing, but immediately. And if you wanted, you could do it hundreds of times a second, right? Thousands of times, millions of times. And we talk about that. That was the real revolution in electronics. That's where electronics come from, right? The name, the discipline, is where basically when the transistor was invented. So these electrical activated switches. But that doesn't change the underlying process. You're just rewiring based on known rules that you establish. So the cylinders in the Enigma machine, they didn't change randomly. They didn't make decisions. And actually they shouldn't, because the only way that that would work is two different Enigma machines would work the exact same way all the time, right? If not, the whole system wouldn't work. But now let's just multiply the number of wires from the 20 wires in the Magic Brain to the probably 100 wires, 200 wires in the Enigma machine to 1,000, tens of thousands, 100,000, millions, and even billions. And let's change the switches instead of 3 or 4, again, into millions and billions. And now you have a computer, right? And basically, when we're talking about artificial intelligence, there's nothing intelligent about it. It's just circuits being rewired very, very fast, a lot of times based on rules that we humans defined. But there's so many changes, and they're happening so fast, even in different parts of the world, because now the information is traveling through satellites or through oceanic cables, and so you have distributed processing. But at the end of the day, it's just the Magic Brain, right? The LLMs are not intelligent. They're not conscious. They can't be. There's nothing that is happening that they decide. So stay tuned for the next one, because I think it will be. I will try not to focus it in artificial intelligence, but I still think it will be obvious what I'm trying to say. But yeah, there's no consciousness. There's no possible consciousness. There's no intelligence. There's no choice. It's just wires being rewired, following processes and rules and conditions that we establish. Yeah, the behavior seems magical. Like how does the Magic Brain know that the capital of France is Paris, right? Or that the Pentagon has 5 sides. You could say, oh, this is all the knowledge in humanity, and to be honest, all the knowledge in humanity could be put in the Magic Brain. You just need a ridiculous large amount of sheet papers, right? With all the potential questions. So I hope that this helps diffuse this hype about and all these lies and all these misrepresentations. It's just smoke and mirrors. I mean, guys, there's nothing there. It's just amazing, the complexity of what we're seeing. If you want to watch that video I created about how complexity emerges from simple rules, in this case, are not simple rules. I mean, we've been putting things on top of things on top of things, but none of that makes it intelligent. None of that makes it that this thing is making a choice. They cannot make choices. They can't understand anything. They're just following over and over the thousands, millions, billions of instructions that we gave them, right? So, okay, I want to keep this short enough. I always say that, but I'll try to do it this time. So, stay tuned for the next one. I think you will enjoy it. The plan is to talk a little more about consciousness and freedom and how those things are connected. So, well, see you in the next one. Bye.